Donald Trump is the luckiest man to be alive. Had the bullet flown less than an inch in a different direction, had his head been turned 5 more degrees towards the crowd, he'd be dead. It was a miraculous miss on the wings of angels. We should not wish to contemplate the death of a president of the United States, an assassination no less, of the major party candidate. I have sent Donald Trump $1,000 to his campaign. The Democrats have been telling us democracy is under attack, and we saw democracy under attack in a field in Pennsylvania on Saturday night. And I think it is incumbent on us to realize that is what a real attack on democracy looks like. A man is dead. Others are wounded, including a former president of the United States who's now his major party candidate. That is an attack on democracy. And the best way to respond to an attack like that on democracy is to ensure Donald Trump gets elected. The best way to respond to an attack on democracy in that way is to get Donald Trump elected. And I can help by offering some money to his campaign to get him across the finish line. On top of that, today, Judge Eileen Cannon has thrown out the classified documents case. The classified documents case against Trump was always the most serious case. And it doesn't affect the underlying details of the case. It affects the appointment of Jack Smith. Until 1999, the United States, from the mid-'80s until 1999, the United States maintained a special prosecutor statute. That special prosecutor statute allowed the appointment of people like Ken Starr, who investigated Bill Clinton. Since the lapse of the special prosecutor statute, there have been special prosecutors, but each special prosecutor appointed by the Attorney General has been a U.S. attorney who went through the confirmation process with the United States Senate. So when George Bush was investigated, when Barack Obama was investigated, the special prosecutors were U.S. attorneys who had gone through the confirmation process, appointed by the president as United States attorneys and confirmed by the United States Senate. Clarence Thomas, in the immunity decision that came out 2 weeks ago, his concurrence questioned the appointment of Jack Smith as a special counsel because Jack Smith worked in The Hague for the International Criminal Court. He wasn't a U.S. attorney. He worked for The Hague. He was recalled. He had previously been a U.S. attorney, but it lapsed because he chose to leave that job for something else. And he had not been appointed by the president and gone through confirmation with the United States Senate. Compare and contrast that situation with Hunter Biden's prosecution, also a special prosecution, but that special prosecutor is a U.S. attorney in Delaware who Joe Biden did not pull from his job, but left in place. He had gone through Senate confirmation. Jack Smith had none of those things. It was an issue raised by Clarence Thomas, and it's an issue seized upon by Judge Eileen Cannon. Whether Jack Smith can appeal this and take it to the 11th Circuit and have the 11th Circuit reverse her, it doesn't matter. The election's going to be in November. It's going to be too late. And right now, everything is coming up Donald Trump, the luckiest man. He should go buy a lottery ticket today. He should go buy Mega Millions is like 200 million, some odd dollars. He should go buy a lottery ticket today. Teflon Don is bulletproof Don. The media, of course, is in a meltdown. The media, within a minute of the announcement of Judge Cannon's decision, so-called legal experts were decrying the decision. They hadn't read the decision. They're transactional. They want some way to stop Donald Trump, and it's increasingly likely they can't. Someone came within an inch of stopping Donald Trump this weekend. Now, I want to talk about that. There's plenty to say on everything else. The president also is announcing, Donald Trump, that he's going to release his vice presidential pick today. There will be further headlines further in the day. But I need to play you a montage from the American Press Corps. This is from the American Press Corps. This is not a lot of Democratic politicians. There are a couple. But these are the conversations, mostly on MSNBC, about Donald Trump. And you need to hear this.
What would a second Donald Trump term look like?
Well, he cannot be the next president. Because if he is,
you can't imagine the things that he's going to do. Mexico, Canada. We can't go to Canada because eventually Canada will become annexed to America.
And shoot visitors to the White House. Yeah, that means he can shoot the First Lady.
We're going to see violence, the likes of which we didn't even see on January 6th.
Make it illegal to run against him, to throw his opponents in jail, to shut down the media.
He will make himself into the Fuhrer, and he will make everybody raise their hand and salute him.
Using martial law against the American people.
Terminate the Constitution.
To rewrite the Constitution.
Create mass internment camps.
Throw everyone into Gitmo.
Might be sent to jail, or their rights might be suppressed, especially minority groups in society.
You might have any number of things happen to you and your family.
Every one of us, our freedom, our liberty, none of us is safe.
It's going to have people around him executing against an enemy's list.
Assassinate generals.
Ordering troops to attack American citizens.
Trump's very well-armed and extremist base will try to kill people.
He's going to basically burn the house down.
he will unravel the institutions of our democracy.
Draw similarities between Mussolini and Hitler.
Adolf Hitler and Benito Mussolini.
Makes Donald Trump even more dangerous.
Wants to take away your vote.
Senate and the House are immediately going to be paralyzed.
People will begin in their minds to censor themselves. They might say, well, maybe I shouldn't say this.
This is the end of democracy.
I think that could be the end of our democracy.
But democracy is dead if Trump is reelected.
Cozy up to Putin that democracy will be at risk.
The absolute destruction of the Justice Department as we know it.
The Justice Department could be entirely transformed.
I am really concerned about that.
Every person who was associated with the attempted coup elevated in the administration.
If he's reelected, he will curb transgender rights.
The end of the rule of law.
Arrest political opponents.
To persecute, not prosecute, but persecute his enemies.
Take a wrecking ball to the rule of law.
He's going to make the law. Everyone else will have to follow.
A vote for Donald Trump may mean the last election that you ever get to vote in.
To go after the independent and free parts of American civic life.
He would tear down our institutions. Purge the government of employees.
Department by department effort to weaponize the powers of the government.
To use the military to quash protests.
Ridding the government of all democratic safeguards.
Junking American democracy as we have always known it.
That he would try to stay in office beyond a second term. That he would never leave office.
There's no question.
Trump is reelected, he won't leave.
Donald Trump will never leave office voluntarily.
And what that means is that everybody who wants us to remain a republic has to put every other thing aside and work together urgently right now to stop that from happening.
If you hear that on a regular basis, isn't that a call to try to stop Donald Trump through any means possible if you support your democracy? What I find remarkable and disturbing is that the bullets are all flying in one direction, and the media's response is to lecture the side getting shot at that they're responsible. I need you to process that. The side that's getting shot at, there are real bullets flying, and they're all flying from left to right. I'm not making that up. All of the political assassination attempts in this country of elected officials and those in politics. Floyd Lee Corkins was an MSNBC viewer who attempted the mass assassination of employees of the Family Research Council, a conservative organization in Washington. James Hodgkinson was an MSNBC viewer who attempted the mass assassination of Republican members of Congress. Nicholas Roski was an MSNBC viewer who attempted the assassination of Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. One of the attempts on someone's life, Joe Biden didn't even mention last night. And for those of you saying, what about Nancy Pelosi? The crazy guy with the hammer who went after her husband, he's already been prosecuted and in jail. Federal prosecutors have charged Nicholas Roski with an attempted assassination attempt on a government official, and he still hasn't been prosecuted. He's still not prosecuted. You had a 77-year-old in California who was beaten up by a mob for wearing a Make America Great Again hat. In Chicago, a mob attacked a Trump supporter in 2016, and now Thomas Matthew Crooks has attempted to take the life of Donald Trump after 8 years of the media telling us he's the second coming of Adolf Hitler. Democracy is under attack. The President of the United States himself. September 1st, 2022, Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans are a threat to the very soul of this country. Donald Trump is the greatest threat to our democracy in another tweet. Donald Trump is a threat to our democracy, and we cannot let him win. Another tweet. Here's one from December 20th, 2023. Trump poses many threats to our country, the right to choose, civil rights, voting rights, and America's standing in the world. But the greatest threat he poses is to our democracy. If we lose that, we lose everything. And then less than a month ago, Donald Trump is a genuine threat to this nation. He's a threat to our freedom. He's a threat to our democracy. He's literally a threat to everything America stands for. That's Joseph Robinette Biden, the sitting president of the United States, talking about his opponent. And what was the reaction on CNN? What was the reaction on ABC? What was the reaction on CBS? What was the reaction on NBC? It was to ask Republicans about Trump's rhetoric. It was to ask Republicans about the right's rhetoric. It was to say Donald Trump should have sought calm in the seconds after he was nearly assassinated. No, I'm not making that up. This is Jamie Gagnell from CNN, their national security correspondent, who in the 30 seconds after Donald Trump is shot thinks he should have behaved differently.
I do want to say there was one thing that when I watched the tape, I found odd because of all of the heated rhetoric. And that is that after he was hit, former President Trump got up and said, fight, fight, fight. I think what we're hearing from people is that's not the message.
That's not the message. Lady, this is 30 seconds after the Secret Service tackled him. He's got a hole through his ear bleeding. The left tried to say, oh, it was just the teleprompter shattering. No, the New York Times captured the picture of the bullet. This is where we are. The media absolutely refuses to hold the left accountable for its own violent rhetoric, and has for 8 years now seeded the notion that Donald Trump is the second coming of Adolf Hitler. I've been telling people for a year this was coming. It's been obvious to me, and it came and luckily missed by an inch. Donald Trump is the luckiest man to be alive, and part of that luck is the stupidity, arrogance, and incompetence of his enemies.